Good morning. On Building Australia today, I'm joined by Joel Seagram from Fantech. Fantech are the sponsors of today's show. We're going to talk all things HRV. So if you're about to build a new house or renovate, or you're even thinking about applying this in the existing home, this video might be for you. Let's get started. So Joel, tell me a little bit about your role with Fantech, your background, and how you came to be what I'd say the authority on all things HRV in Australia at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Great to be here today. Authority is probably a really generous word, but I love to know what I'm working with there.
Well, your name always comes up, so.
Thanks, mate. Too kind. So in essence, my role at Fantech is a little bit around product development, strategy, and ultimately sales for MVHR or HRV units. We kind of mix that phrase up a little. So I've been in that space for probably about 10, 12 years now. So we've got a team of people work in that space. And Fantech is a business that's really specialised in air movement and a bit of acoustic stuff for more than 50 years now. So we've got a good sort of grounding in that ventilation space.
Yeah, okay. So there's a lot of history before Passive House, purely ventilation.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. With a HRV system, one of the questions I get is, what about the existing systems people are familiar with, like exhaust fans? So can you explain how HRV system is essentially going to replace all of those previous systems?
Yeah, mechanical stuff. So our code's interesting in that we talk about mechanical extract from bathrooms, and that's to get rid of odour and moisture and bits and pieces. And so that's what we've seen in conventional houses of more recent times. In the early days, they actually had just operable window as a requirement for bathroom and toilets, which is kind of a little bit lame.
We still rely on it a little bit, but there's a better way.
Correct. And for fresh air supply at the moment, our code kind of talks about operable windows to supposedly give fresh air ventilation. But obviously when we run bathroom exhaust fans and things, we're sucking in 40, 50 litres a second, and that air's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's got to come ultimately from outside the building. So if you live in a climate that's cold or hot, then you're making some uncomfortable conditions when you use an extract-only type strategy like that.
Yeah.
But when you go to a balanced HRV system where you're supplying the same quantities you extract and you're using a heat exchanger, then that's going to give you much higher efficiency in terms of heating and cooling, and it's going to give you better comfort conditions.
And cleaner air as well. I think that's the other thing.
Absolutely.
With an extraction fan, we're just replacing that air from outside, from wherever it can leak into the building, but it's not being filtered in any way.
Correct.
It's just being moved, and perhaps not even that efficiently either.
Correct, yep. We don't quite know where it's going. We don't know the quantities and so forth. It might be coming from your garage under the door that leads to your garage. It might come out of your roof space. So when you've got that bathroom fan extracting, where does that makeup air come? We don't know, and we don't know the quality of it in that sort of system.
So in a sense, with a HRV system set up properly in a home, you don't really need to open windows. Obviously, you still have the choice, the option to do that, but you don't need to anymore. It's sort of making all those decisions for you, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. It's designed to sit in the background. Often people want to do loads of integration with the HRV unit, and we kind of say, look, it's not really necessary. This thing should just run at a standard speed in the background.
Yeah.
It should be largely noise-free. But it filters your air, it gives you moisture and odour control and fresh air filtered, as you say, to your habitable spaces. So it should just exist in the background. And like you say, with windows, open them as you feel free. When the outside conditions and air quality is fine, there's no problems with that.
Yeah, but you don't have to. Because one of the things that I see come up a bit in social housing or rental properties is there's often problems with condensation and mould because people just lock these places up. There's less ownership around them, so there's less, thought or care about the building itself. Whereas I kind of feel like HRV system could lend itself to every home in Australia at the moment. And obviously it comes up a lot with Passive House, but I think in every home, it's just going to improve the health of the home.
Absolutely. Ventilation is needed for every home, irrespective of air tightness. And we can kind of get into that air tightness conversation down the track a bit. And that air tightness probably impacts your heat recovery part, but the ventilation part is important irrespective of air tightness.
Yeah, yeah. If you open up a HRV system, what are you seeing inside there, Joel? How is it working? What does it look like with that airflow? So people can sort of understand how, for example, you're retrieving that heat energy.
Yeah, yep. So we've got sort of two airstreams. We've got an exhaust airstream. We put extract grills into any room that's wet or odorous. So
Kitchens, bathrooms,
Yep.
laundries.
mudroom, that sort of stuff. And we'll put a supply air grill into anywhere that's habitable. So we've got study, bedroom, living, dining, that sort of stuff.
And the idea is it's flowing from those rooms down the hallways, passages,
Correct.
back into those typically wet areas.
Correct. Yep. We don't need a grill in the hallways. They're known as transition spaces. And we also don't need both supply and extract in a single room because the airflows are low enough that they can make their way under a door undercut or equivalent. So, but essentially what we're doing is bringing those two airstreams very close to each other, but without mixing. So what we've got in the HRV unit is two fans, one that controls the supply air rate and one that has the exhaust air rate. And we've got a fixed heat exchanger, which is a static thing. It's a whole series of plates, a little bit like a radiator in a car. And the idea is to bring those two airstreams really close together, but separated by a polymer membrane there. And we allow that heat transfer to happen there.
So it's not holding the heat in there, is it? It's just purely allowing it to transfer.
Move from one airstream to the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And so we can do that at really high efficiency. So with counterflow heat exchangers, we can get up into the low 90s in terms of efficiency. And that's proven lab data. That's not marketing spin.
Yep.
We've got good certification data from institutes like the Passive House Institute and so forth.
Which is a great topic for another video one day, is sales data and then the hard science, because often those two vary so much.
Correct, yep. Downhill with the tailwind is the expression I like to use about marketing literature some days.
Yeah, in the best possible situations, you'll get 85%. In reality, which we don't like to talk about, that's another video right there for another day. As the high-performance building market is expanding and becoming more and more common for people, do you see much competition in the number of suppliers out there at the moment, or do you still stick with a brand that you think is just head and shoulders above everyone else? Yeah,
well, we obviously like to think some of our brands are the head and shoulders above, but we are seeing more players come onto the market. And thankfully, we're seeing them predominantly out of Europe. So Europe have obviously got a reputation for making the good quality stuff.
Yeah.
And probably most importantly, Europe have got some really tight testing regulations. So we're not talking passive house testing here, but we are talking Euro standards for testing that test for air tightness, heat recovery and noise and all those things. Because units produced in other locations tend not to have any of that data. So you've really not got much idea what you're ending up with without that data.
Yeah.
So yep, we're seeing more stuff come through, which is kind of good for the consumer at the end of the day. They've got more options, they've got price point options.
Yeah.
I
guess ultimately from a supplier point of view, and the same with builders and installers, you always want to be working with a product that you know is durable and warrantable for as long as possible, because no one wants those headaches with trialing a new brand that's been sort of untested in Australia. So I mean, the one that always comes back to me that I always see is the Zender brand. I think it's sort of infamous in this space, and probably the longest sort of standing.
It is one of the early players. Yeah, those guys alongside Stiebel Eltron have probably been in the Oz market for the longest. We kind of love that product. It is just really low noise, high efficiency related product. It's been durable. We've had it for close to 10 years now.
Yeah, I can think of a project where I think I first met you 8 years ago, and to my knowledge that unit's been working flawlessly the whole time. So it's that kind of historical data that really helps the decision making as well. Yeah,
and one of the big things is actually noise, and we can kind of split efficiency in calculations, but when the homeowner moves in, they don't really know 95% efficiency from 87%, but what they know is noise. It's what they hear every day. So we put a lot of effort into selecting and system design and acoustic products to make sure the noise is low.
And it stands out even more if your windows and your building envelope is airtight. That little bit of background noise does stand out
Correct.
even more.
Yeah.
So pretty valid concern, that one.
Yep. And noise is a tricky thing. Everyone's got different sensitivities to it. We would never say systems are dead silent. We would always say there's some very light noise, but it shouldn't be a disturbing issue for you.
Yeah, and background noise can mean trams bounce along the road, or it can mean chickens, which we'll probably have today at some point. So yeah, that's very much a contextual thing. Depending on where you live, you'll think about background noise very differently. So very good point. So at the moment, the current code, the NCC, is there any reference to HRV at the moment? My understanding is we've got guides to do with ventilation, air movement in general, but in terms of HRV,
Yeah.
do you reckon we're going to see that anytime soon?
I don't think it's anytime soon. I'd love to be proven wrong on that.
Yep.
What I think we'll see is a little more stringency around air tightness.
Yep.
And so these things work hand in hand. So if we go back just half a step, we've kind of got the building code coming through with, and we'll talk specifically for residential here, given that's probably most of our audience.
Yep.
We've got fresh air supply via windows. Now that's can be a challenging proposition. So, and particularly as we get more urban densification with properties. So through windows, obviously, if it's a really still day, you've got to have your windows open first and foremost, but on a really still day, you don't get much ventilation. On a windy day, you get too much ventilation.
Yeah.
But in those urban contexts, you've also got security to worry about.
And the house next door.
The house next door, are they burning their great wood fire in bits and pieces? What's the outdoor air quality like?
About that.
Western suburbs, I know Maddie Carlin loves to talk about western suburbs and bits and pieces and air quality. And then we've got thermal discomfort. So in the middle of winter, you might be getting ventilation, but if it's 0 degrees outside and you're anywhere in that room, it's plain cold.
It's currently a system of uncontrolled ventilation. The checks that are in there in the NCC are about minimum standards, and that's a starting point, but I think that's all it is just a starting point.
Yeah.
But it's very much uncontrolled. What we're talking about is a very intelligent approach to ventilation, a healthy approach to ventilation.
Yep. And on the moisture management side, at the moment, our code talks about having extract fans into laundries, bathrooms, and more recently, they've tightened up a bit on kitchens having externally discharging.
Yeah.
And that's all about moisture management really there. Fundamentally though, we start to get in some problems, and particularly class 2, so apartments and concrete, so precast.
High density.
Yeah, so, and also air tightness. So those buildings are kind of easily stumbling into 2 air changes per hour and less at 50 pascals under that.
Just because of the nature of the construction.
Yeah, concrete panels, they're corked, that's an intrinsically really airtight product. And so we get air quality and moisture issues. And you also find that bathroom exhaust fans aren't going to perform particularly well because they'll run for the first few seconds till they create a bit of negative pressure. And then they'll start to stall and your flow rates will be way less than what you think. So we've got some things to work with there. We need some increased stringency around air tightness, but then we need the matching ventilation.
To back it up. I mean, it's interesting when you talk about class 2s, we don't have big concerns about, well, not so much concern about durability because they're concrete structures predominantly, but in most domestic constructions, we're talking about timber frames. So I think the other part of all this that's a long-term benefit is the durability of homes with correct ventilation, because we are starting to see the issues with this now where you're seeing timber frames that are just badly impacted by poor ventilation. So that's why I think it probably needs to be enshrined in law to say this is the minimum standard for active, intelligent HRV in every home.
Correct.
And it doesn't have to be expensive, because my understanding is it can be supplemented from some other form of heating or cooling in the building that will no longer be required.
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a mix of things going on there. One of the challenges in low spec homes is the low temps we get in there. So when you see them running in winter at 12 and 13 degrees, there's lots of moisture and condensation. So we've got to kind of, make sure we've got that ventilation model set up. The higher we can have those thermal performance things, the higher our temperatures stay in winter. We've actually got less of a problem in that. But you're absolutely right on the durability stuff. The HRV is not just about indoor air quality. It's actually about getting rid of that moisture that will continuously migrate through your building fabric.
And will never be seen.
And will never be seen until someone strips or starts to feel the effects
Yep.
of mold growth and bits and pieces come through.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a bathroom leak. I mean, I've had this in the past where someone will ask me about a bathroom renovation and they'll mention, oh, there's a bit of a wet spot there. We think it might be leaking. And you sort of peel back the layers. It's like, it's gone.
Everywhere.
And you haven't known for
Yep.
10 years that you could have done something about it.
The tip of the iceberg, isn't it?
Yeah.
By the time it's come all the way through your plasterboard, you've got a decent problem in the back.
It's a scary proposition. I remember, Joel, yourself and Cameron Munro did a presentation at the Thrive conference, not this year, but the previous year, to speak about ventilation strategies, I think in the context of in airtight homes as well. What are your thoughts on specifically range hoods in kitchens now?
Yeah, okay. So it's a little bit of data that's probably been missing in the high performance space to some degree, and particularly perhaps in the passive house space where we've historically seen recirculating range hoods. They're ones where the intent is to capture the grease and so forth, but they don't do anything for moisture. And what we'd sort of speculated for a while was they weren't going to do much for PM 2.5 particles because they're the really fine things you generate when you fry and so forth.
Yep.
And the other option to a recirc is an externally discharged. But the reason that sort of passive house space hadn't really leapt into there was the complexity that comes needing make-up air. Obviously a range hood, high volume device might be doing 100 to 200 litres a second. We need to make sure there is some make-up air provision for the same reason.
And just to unpack that a little bit, essentially what needs to happen in that situation is you're running two fans. So you have your extraction fan as you normally do in any kitchen, but you have a secondary fan that's replacing that air. So it is a slightly more complex situation, isn't it?
It is, definitely. And it's also super critical if you have combustion heaters or combustion devices in your building because we don't want negative induced pressure there. We can suck combustion products that might be at best unhealthy, at worst plain dangerous if you get carbon monoxide. So we need to balance that out in that scenario. But essentially what we did, Cameron and I, we went around with a standard egg and a standard fry pan and a cooktop, and we ran a series of experiments in about 8 or 9 different projects of fairly high air tightness level with a mix of these range hoods. And we found that the externally discharging range hood did about a 50% better job at getting rid of those PM 2.5 particles.
And that's a good enough number to say, well, there's the answer.
That's it.
It's just how do you do that in a way that's going to maintain air quality, the volume of air in the house and the air tightness?
Yeah, and not put a horrible burden on the builder trying to locate all this kit because it can get a little bit bulky when you look at the damper systems and so forth.
Yeah. And on that note, I mean, obviously the preference I'm thinking these days is going to be more pushing towards induction cooking and not gas cooking as well, which again is one of those things that comes up with people I speak to who want a wood heater. They love gas cooking. I'm like, they're great things. I love them too. But they conflict a little bit with, certainly with passive house, but more broadly with the environment too.
Correct. Yep, and we've only got to imagine gas prices are going to escalate over time.
Unfortunately, they probably will.
Yeah, so it's a challenging space, but I think we're on the right path with what we're working on.
So maybe you can help me answer this one. I have a lot of clients ask me about a wood heater. They love the idea of sitting in front of the fire and reading a book, and I do too. But in terms of a passive house, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I totally get the ambient side. It is a nice thing to do, particularly in passive house and high performance. The heating demand, or the heat loads rather, are just tiny, so you won't need it. So I would always sort of say, look, I think it's probably not the right sort of product for there. You won't need to run AC, and I think people have got heating rather for long periods to keep your house warm. It'll stay pretty stable. And I think people come, particularly in cooler regions, from poor quality builds, and they're
used to it.
They've thought about how much they've had to drive those heating devices and bits and pieces, but that step to passive house is a significant step.
Yeah, and I mean, it's more of a rural thing. The clients I'm thinking of are more up in the hills and even out towards Gippsland. And they've always had that they've always had a wood heater. It's part of the lifestyle out there.
It is.
But also what they've had is those leaky old weatherboard homes that just, they're on a different level. So, yeah.
And the other issue there is we've got to think about our neighbours. Not so bad in a rural context where you've got hundreds of metres to neighbours, but if you're in a denser environment, that wood smoke is a considerable issue. And we have a number of clients who are coming with HRV systems and we'll sketch something out. And they'll say, as a design stage, and they'll say to us, but we have a neighbour next door who burns their wood heater lots. Can we not have our intake grill there? And we're like, that's a fair assessment. So there is enough of that going around. People are concerned that it's impacting their comfort.
I think in urban areas now, I'm not sure because I've never needed to look into it, but I think now they're forbidden anyway.
There's a start of some movement at a council level, I think, to do that. There's nothing in code, and we're kind of the great Aussie dreamers here should be able to do pretty much what you like. And
I mean, it's just what you need as well. I mean, the solution is just build better, and that's locked in for the life of the home. Whereas the wood heater, as always, is a bit of a short-term solution.
It is. It's a band-aid. As I say, I get the ambience thing. They're awesome on occasion, but as a heating strategy, it's not a great plan.
Yeah, it's a little bit how I feel about concrete. Yeah. You know, it's sort of when it's good, it's really good, but there's often an alternative.
Use it lightly.
Yeah. So when people are about to embark on this journey, Joel, where can they go and see and experience the effects of a HRV system? Yeah,
so that's a bit of a tricky one. Obviously, suppliers have HRV units there, but to even just stand in front of a unit that's been turned on, you won't really get an appreciation even of the noise because you need a full duct system with silencers on. You also won't really get an air quality appreciation as well. I think the main thing is go to open homes, see stuff that is during installation, but also see post-occupancy stuff and hear feedback from owners about how they've experienced HRV, and that's typically way more comfortable, great air quality, and no moisture issues. Yeah, and the other good thing about seeing this at an open home, like during the build, is you're seeing it just before plaster. So you really get a sense of everything that goes into it, more than just the HRV, but you sort of get to see before the plaster goes on and it begins to look like most other homes. You get to see what's behind the walls to make it so effective. That's it, the magic in the box. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So there you go. Thanks, Joel. Thanks for joining us on Building Australia. And in the next video, we're going to be talking all things Passive House certification. So I hope you can join us then. Thanks very much. Cheers, Andy.